Hi, and welcome to the Publish Press podcast. I'm Steve Burge, and in this episode, I'm talking with Akshat Choudhary from WP Remote. I'm really glad I had the opportunity to invite Akshat on because he doesn't talk much. He's a self-professed shy guy, and he's not someone you'll always be hearing from on YouTube, social media, podcasts. Instead, he's an engineer at heart who loves to build great products. And that's what he's done with WP Remote and the associated brands. We dig into his story on this episode and his philosophy of building high quality products that people love. I think you're going to get a ton out of this interview. Here's Akshat. Hey, Akshat, welcome to the Publish Press podcast.
Thanks, Steve. Thanks for having me.
So where are you today? Where are you calling in from?
So I'm in our Bangalore offices. I'm sitting in our studio of our Bangalore offices. So unlike actually most of WordPress, companies, we work out of an office. Almost all of our team is working from a single office in Bangalore.
Well, I've met quite a few people who have started companies in India, Bangladesh, and places like that. And surprisingly, it's quite common, I think, to have an office. I don't know whether maybe that's a reflection of bad internet speeds in people's homes or why it is, but there seems to be a culture, perhaps, of working together and coming to the office.
So, I would not. I wouldn't blame any of them. If anyone gets a blame, that's me. If you're working remotely, you need to have really good communication and you need to have very good processes in place. I think the kind of effort required to put into any of those, I have not been able to do. Given all of that, we have realized that for the kind of products that we make and the kind of just the culture that we have, having everyone in a single space, single office, just makes collaboration so much easier, allows us to build products which otherwise is so much more difficult. And we learned it the hard way. We did do the year-long COVID experiment, and it was not fun at all for us.
Oh, so there is a single WP Remote office now where, well, how many people do you have on your team now?
I think we are almost 40 people right now.
Okay. Can you give me a quick overview of how your products stack up? You have WP Remote and Blog Vault and a couple of others. Is WP Remote, I mean, that's what you're wearing on your hoodie right now. Is that the main product that you centralize most of your efforts on?
All right. So WP, it's a funny story. So actually, the lock logo that you're seeing here, that logo is originally for our main product, our first product. I shouldn't even call it our main product. Our first product, Blog Vault. So, and that goes back to the origin of our company also. That is, Blog Vault was our first product. That was the backups product. Then we came to Malcare, which is a security product. We did Migrate Guru, which is a free migration plugin. We also had some other migration thing, which if we get a chance, we can talk about that, where we collaborated with a lot of the biggest web hosts in the world, including WP Engine, Automatic, Pantheon, Liquid Web. Each of the, like you name a big web host and they were all our partners, customers. They all are. So we did that. We are doing that. We have WP Remote, which is an agency product, and finally Airlift. And all of these are all tied together by the hip. So we can talk about how all of these work together. But yes, and all of them, at least for the time being, share the same logo. So that's the common thread. That's another common thread running, joining all our products together. So we just use that as one brand identity to say that, hey, that lock, if you say that lock, you know that those products are built by us.
Oh, so your products they're interrelated and maybe the different brands are targeting different audiences to some extent?
Different use cases, different needs. In a couple of cases, different audiences, but mostly different use cases. I think, in my opinion, it's most of WordPress products typically end up targeting two audiences. I think half of our customers tend to be agencies, and the other half tend to be DIYers, uh, people who run marketing teams, who run websites on by themselves. They are part of a team. They're SEO people. They're content people. They're business owners themselves who love tinkering. So it's this mix of crowd where half the customers is this, and I've been, at least my experience says that this applies to every WordPress product. I don't know if it applies to you, but I have seen this apply to so many WordPress products, and it applies to us too.
We try and be a little different in terms of aiming more directly at, say, universities or government agencies or more enterprise customers. But the end result seems to be that a lot of the purchases come through agencies in the end. That maybe this university or maybe this government agency is working with a regular web agency, and so the purchase comes from them. So I think you're right. 50% of the business for me, for you, ends up coming through agencies.
Steve, it's almost like, and I know this is not the purpose of the conversation, but I need to talk to you about how you sell to universities and governments, because there's so much all of us in the WordPress ecosystem can learn from that experience of yours. But that's a different conversation, I'm sure.
Well, it's not easy. Just before getting on the call with you, I was wrestling with an enormous amount of paperwork for one university, and the purchase they're making is only, say, $400, but they have all this standard paperwork to go through. It can be a painful process to target those kinds of customers. We probably need to do a little bit of what you do, which is try and move up market to increase our prices. Say, hey, we're a higher quality product at a higher price, simply because the difficulty of selling to those customers requires a higher price. We need to put more effort into selling to them.
Absolutely. I'm one of the big proponents. I keep talking, whenever I meet, I don't want to name them now, because whenever I meet some of these folks who are selling other plugins, I'm like, you guys need to increase your prices significantly, because you are selling to like a Microsoft, and not just Microsoft is, is short form for any large company. And those guys are willing to spend thousands and thousands of dollars if you just need to raise the invoice correctly. And I'm sure they will spend thousands of dollars on your product. And then if you sell for $1,000, it gives us permission to sell for a lot higher also.
Oh, like a rising tide lifts all boats. That if the general expectation of WordPress pricing is higher, it'll be easier to charge higher prices. But if the general expectation of WordPress pricing is a lifetime deal for $30, that makes it more difficult for everyone to make a living. If
absolutely,
we find ourselves often compared to products that are selling for $30 for a lifetime.
Absolutely, and this again goes back to our origin story. All our products are essentially SaaS products, and
okay.
And I think, like I was telling you before, just before we started recording, is, I consider myself a WordPress outsider because of my origin. I come from, prior to building Block Vault, I was hacking FreeBSD kernel for a high-end networking device company, where we were selling products to the likes of Googles and Amazons for extreme networking requirements. and with extremely high performance, and so completely different world, not the kind of products that we typically build for, not the kind of web applications that we typically build. So that was my background, and I worked as an engineer for 7 years before creating BlogVault.
Well, you
And
dabbled in your own business as well, right? You had like a mobile startup, a kind of a WhatsApp style business for a while.
oh yes, again, coming from India, I was always interested in starting my own products. I read all the great stories of uh, the great businesses, the great software companies that had been created over time. So I always wanted to create something. And if you go back to 2005 era, this is pre-iPhone. So what was SMS was a big deal then, and everyone had a mobile. Mobile was a big deal. SMS was a big deal. We built a product which let you, and SMS used to be peer to peer, so you could message one person at a time. So we built a product which let you talk to multiple people at a time as a group, and it was a really interesting product at that time. Uh, and we got like tens of thousands of users. We got a lot of love for the product, but it was very difficult to sustain uh, because with every SMS we sent, we incurred costs. So eventually that thing didn't work out. But the bug to create good products was always there. And
It
as
must
I
have
was
got
dabbling with different ideas, I think one of the ideas which we,
it must have got pretty big.
sorry?
The product must have got pretty big. I was doing my research before getting on the podcast with you, and I was able to find several articles from newspapers back in like 2006, 2007, talking about your product.
Yes. So again, the newspaper thing, we got lucky to have, good media coverage. In India at that time, having young people out of college creating products, so enthusiastic about entrepreneurship, trying out different things, new things, not just not just copying ideas of repeating products, which was tried and tested. There was uh, there was a huge people. The press wanted to encourage that, and and we did see a large number of people use our product. I think at our peak we had like 20,000 daily active users and
Wow.
100,000 plus registrations. But it was super expensive. I was burning through all my salary trying to pay for SMSs. So it was insanity. And what we did see was, what we see with WhatsApp, the use case was very clear that people wanted many to many communication. And in a group setting, it just led to a completely different form of communication. It was a beast of its own. And what we see today, what we take for granted, at that time, when we try to negotiate, so we actually went ahead and we negotiated with uh, carriers. So it was super interesting. Just as an aside, actually, I was talking to my sister whom I was visiting in Bay Area last month, and my nephew. And I was telling them, and we were listening to a podcast which was about OpenAI for some reason. And I was telling him that I was visiting Bay Area in 2007, and I happened to meet Sam Altman, or at least I can't remember if I met him in person directly, or at least I saw him. So they were doing something similar with their product at that time in 2006-7 time
Yeah,
frame.
they had a location product, I think. Like
Yes,
yours was similar to WhatsApp. I think Sam Altman had a product more similar to Foursquare, a kind of location find your
exactly
friends app.
right. So they had an open house at that time. So I drove down to their offices to hang out with them because I was trying to figure out how they cracked their deals with carriers. So we were able to crack a deal with one carrier, which was because we didn't have any funding, we didn't have anything. So, and we were trying to crack deals with bigger carriers, and it was a really uphill task. So we wanted to figure out, like, hey, what are these guys up to? How did they crack it? Little did I know that Sam Altman is like the uh, the greatest deal maker of all time.
So, he, I mean, you say you like reading biographies or hearing entrepreneurial stories. There was a book that came out recently called The Optimist about Sam Altman, and it basically tells this story. It tells his life story, but it also tells the story of how he dealt with the carriers, and basically he met one of the carriers and basically worked on this guy and sold him, and the guy was just amazed. He said, "This guy Sam Altman is the greatest salesman of all time." Like it was an incredibly difficult task that it took a very special person. I mean, we talk in the WordPress space about it being very difficult to sell to hosting companies. I can imagine that selling to phone carriers is exponentially more difficult.
Yes, it is. Like, we had these conversations, getting to meeting with them was incredibly difficult. And we got one carrier on board. So uh, we got lucky again. So a lot of things fell in place for that, but it was super difficult. And like, to get a major carrier was, yeah, it was really difficult. And we thought that maybe if I go and meet these folks in their El Camino Real offices, maybe something I learned from them. I didn't take away anything at that time. I was too naive, I didn't have any other. Not that I'm any much better, but yes, this book I should give it a look, because uh, it it dates back, it brings back good memories. Speaking of web hosting, we did crack deals with some of the biggest web hosts out there.
How did you approach that? Was it a case of making sure you went to the same WordPress events as them and sitting down in person and trying to strike a deal one-on-one? Because web hosting companies are notoriously difficult to sell anything to.
Yes, no. So this is a super interesting story. So I'm a big fan of, and this is again prior to starting Blog Vault. If you know Jason Cohen from WP Engine, I had been following him for a long time, even prior to him starting WP Engine. So one of the things, so I would follow like any interview, any podcast, anything he was a part of, any of his writings. And in one of the podcasts, he had mentioned that he would get all these customers to join WP Engine. And this is in 2012-13 timeframe. So you can imagine, completely different era. And but they'd still built a name for themselves. And he mentioned that they would get customers to purchase WP Engine product, but they couldn't get customers to onboard, simply because migrating a site was super difficult. And I was like, that's exactly what we do, because what we do is we have incredible backups and we have incredible restores. And sometimes we used to take for granted. We thought everyone has great backups and great restores, but it was not the case. And so we're like, what is a migration? Migration is great backups and great restores. And if we can solve that problem for them and package it in a way, maybe this is something I can sell to Jason Cohen. So what I did was, I saw the interview. I was like, let me drop him a mail. I dropped him a mail, no reply. I was like, okay, done. He's not interested in this. Okay. So I think 6 months later, I was at WordCamp San Francisco. That's in 2013. And there I see Jason Cohen. So I'm like, hey, Jason, this is me. I'd seen this podcast of yours. This is the problem I can solve. And, very casual, again, very careful. Like, I wasn't sure, very shy, but Jason is very, very makes you comfortable. So I was able to have that conversation with him. And he's like, yeah, why don't you drop me a mail? I'm like, okay, fine, I'll drop him a mail. I dropped him a mail. I think he acknowledged it. Then I then I didn't hear back from him. And I was like, I thought, fine, he's not interested in this. A year goes by. I see him at WordCamp San Francisco again. And this time again, I tell him the same thing. Hey, what happened? He's like, oh, I got busy. You should have followed up. And that lesson of following up is something which still takes a long time for me to come around to. Fortunately, again, I have a team which is much, much better at it. But yeah, that's like sales or any kind of just work 101, right? There's no such thing as people get busy. Life comes in the way. If you're running a business like WP Engine, there are a million things happening. So, anyways, come next year, I meet Jason Cohen. I tell him this, and I'm like, okay, fine. I dropped him a mail, but at the same time, what happened was, uh, I think it was that year, or was it one more year? I don't remember if it was 2014 or if it was 2015. I think it was 2014. Uh, in San Francisco, I bumped into another customer of ours who was a large agency, and they had this event called WooConf, so which happened in San Francisco. So I met them, and there's this incredible couple. They run an amazing agency in UK called Whole Grain Digital, and they had been a customer of ours for a few years. So they had been using us for their backups, and we spoke to them. We told about this, and we just ended up having a nice chat. What happened was that summer, or a few months later, the WP Engine CEO, or at that time was CEO, I don't remember, Heather, she ended up visiting their offices, Whole Grain Digital's offices uh, in UK, in London. And Vinita and Tom were really kind, and they were like, you guys need to work with Akshat. And had that not happened, I can tell you none of the partnerships would have happened. Like, and that was the one clinching factor that then caused everything else to fall in place. So then I think Heather connected with Jason, and then we tried to we built a proposition for them, and then things fell in place. And then one thing led to another, and we created plugins for not only them and then all the other web hosts out there. Then it became much easier.
So how long did that whole process take from first approaching Jason to actually
So
getting a deal done?
now I don't know if it was 12, like you can imagine the first meeting maybe, and simply because of because I was not a good salesperson, but maybe 2 years. But that's like, I think should have been much, much shorter. It can be much shorter because their pain point was very clear.
And was that the big break, or one of the biggest breaks you've had so far building the business? Was getting inside hosting companies and getting those partnerships?
It's a pro and a con. Okay. In hindsight, obviously getting a WP Engine brand played a very big role because it showed the quality of products we were building. It showcased that, because now when you have a WP Engine kind of partnership, it shows uh, the reliability of a solution. Others, and people could see the kind of seamless products we could build, and we got a lot of customers because of it. So that definitely helped. But at the same time, it caused us to be a distraction because we thought the web hosts are a important customer segment for us, which was not true. I think web hosts are important, but our primary customers are still direct. As a business, we are a business that uh, has grown in like almost most of our business comes from uh, customers who buy our products directly. So the
Oh,
web hosts, that was an important partnership. Sorry, go ahead.
so the hosting companies ended up being a percentage of the business, but maybe a slightly distracting percentage of the business. I mean, we all have some parts of our business, like 5-10% of the business, that causes, maybe even it doesn't cause problems, but causes us to take our eyes off the ball a little bit.
Exactly. So I wouldn't call them problems. They're fantastic partners. And again, there are big benefits to having this partnership. But sometimes, as an entrepreneur, you make a bad call in terms of you think that's the part of business you should be focusing on. You should try and sell to more of those, whereas what you need to focus on is your customer base is slightly different. Ideally, we should have focused more on agencies more aggressively upfront.
So we had, I had a conversation with the founders of Pagely a few years ago. We had Josh on the podcast, and he was describing his business philosophy, which was to move as strongly as possible to the top right quadrant of customers, the people who are willing to pay more and are looking for higher quality products. And I kind of get the same feeling from you in terms of how you run your business, that you're not going to be selling lifetime deals anytime soon. You're not going for the most customers. You're looking to position WP Remote almost in that kind of, in the same quadrant as Pagely and WP Engine. More quality, perhaps higher prices with it. Is that fair to say?
Yes, I think those are incredible brands, and being associated with, being in the same quadrant as them is something to be proud of. I would love to be a part of that. Yes, the goal is not to sell cheap solutions or low quality solutions. I think the goal is to sell highest quality products. Personally, I believe that once a person opens their wallet, then until unless you are exorbitantly priced, if you're adding, if you're if you're delivering value, then you should be able to charge a fair price, because the nature of software is that you should be able to charge a fair price for it. And there are obviously folks for whom it's outside the budget, and uh, that's a different market, and we're not trying to solve for everybody. But what we are sure of is, for quality product, the kind of value it creates, the kind of money we charge for it is way smaller than the kind of value we can create. And because if we charge fairly, it allows us to invest in a manner which otherwise is not possible, and then that creates a flywheel effect. It just causes you to create products which just completely stand out, and that's the reason why we have been able to invest in our products and build products which are completely different. And again, on the surface, it doesn't appear so, but if you go into the details, you can see the difference. You can see the kind of effort we are able to put in, the kind of engineering team we can create, the kind of support team we can create, the kind of people we are working with. Like I mentioned, I would not. I am the last person to get in front of camera, and we have an incredible YouTube channel ourselves, and that is simply because of the team we have, and that is possible only because we have great customers who believe in paying for the value they're getting from our products.
You've mentioned a few times that you're shy. Is that maybe a fair word to use? That in doing the research for this episode, I was trying to find interviews with you. I do that before every episode, try and see what people have said on camera before, maybe so I don't ask the same questions all the time, or just to get a feel for the person. And there weren't many for you. You're not one of those hyper-social CEOs who is always tweeting, always on camera. You post once every couple of months on LinkedIn or X or somewhere like that. But generally, you take a different approach. quieter,
Yeah, it's
more
yes,
thoughtful?
it's my nature. I wouldn't call it more thoughtful. That's giving credit to myself. It is just my personality, my nature. Tend to uh, I tend to yeah, I tend to be more inward focused, and that's not always a great thing. As an entrepreneur yourself, being out there is super helpful to your business. Often, I especially in today's world, uh, having a great uh, public persona is a superpower. It is one of the biggest things you can have for your business. And yeah, I definitely need to do more of it. Let me put it this way. And thank you again for having me. This gives me that opportunity to do more of it.
Partly it's your personality. You're kind of maybe a naturally somewhat of a shy person. Does it make a difference being based in India? I'm curious what it's like to try and grow a company there when, I mean, the bulk of your bulk of your clients are in North America or Europe. There are time zone challenges, um, and maybe you're a little some distance away from the hosting companies you may want to be working with. But I can imagine there are some substantial advantages too. How has being based in Bangalore affected the growth of your business?
Yes, I think if you are in US or Europe, which tends to be some of the largest software markets, if you look at software markets in general, US accounts for 50 to 60% of all software. North America generally that gets bought. And that's true for our case. Like North America is 50 to 60% of our market. And then Europe comes in close second.
55% for us, I think, right around that number.
Exactly, right? So that I think, and America has really created the software market. And it is one of the things which I really think about and I read about as to what causes. The US is such an interesting culture to, to I think very few cultures could have created software market or could have created value for or understood the value of software. Unlike like US very clearly stands out for it, and then obviously the rest of the world has uh, followed that lead. And but yeah, US continues to be one of the largest markets for us also. And being so far removed from your key market uh, makes it really difficult uh, to understand it. Internet makes it things much easier, but at the same time, if whenever you get a chance to be in the same room as your customer, it's you learn things which you otherwise will not. Also, in terms of marketing, in terms of community, and things have changed in WordPress. Things have changed significantly in the past 5 years. But if you go back 7, 8, 9 years, I think that there was a huge community aspect to WordPress, and that aspect, I think, being physically present made things so much easier. Even like WP Engine, if you'll see WP Engine, uh, he speaks about, they speak, I think Jason Cohen at that time spoke about marketing at different events and the value it created for WP Engine. So, so yes, being in India is a disadvantage. There are advantages also at the same time. Those events are distractions. In some ways, if you're only networking all the time, your product you can only spend so much time focusing on product. So, but the reality is you need to be close to your customers as much as possible.
So, as the CEO, you've kind of got a team to do the marketing for you. You're not one of those marketing first CEOs, as we've discussed. You have people to do the YouTube channel for you, for example. Where do you spend most of your time on the business? You're an engineer. Are you spending a large majority of your time on the business processes, on the platform itself?
So working with different teams does take up a lot of time because, at this skills, working with all the different teams, making sure everyone is successful takes up a lot of time. I think AI has been such a big change to the whole world, to our industry, to the whole world. Uh, that takes up a lot of time simply because the thing is evolving so fast. You know that it's coming to affect you. You overestimate what's happening. So that is taking up a lot of my time too. Just trying to understand, wrapping my head around what is happening.
So not quite implementing AI inside the business yet, more kind of understanding how you could implement it. Where is WP Remote with AI at the moment?
So actually, we have been spending a lot of time. So we recently released an incredibly new dashboard for our products, and almost every line of code of that dashboard was written using AI. Almost every. I would venture to say 99.9% of all code there is written using AI. And this is precursor days. So we have been following this trend for the past 2 years, and it has been one of our it's been one of our some things which we got obsessed with in some way simply because it's so interesting. You could see the power. You know that the kind of uh, abilities it gave you, it just otherwise was not possible. Some things have worked out, but there are lots of things that did not work. It's been a lot of trial and error, and yeah, things take a lot longer because of it. So I think had we not done it using AI, it might have been faster. But that skill, picking up that skill is super important. And it's not that that's the the platforms, everything is changing. But I think there are some underlying core tenets which we have understood, which had we not gone through the trial and error, we would not have understood. And this is something which I'll tell every person, every agency owner, every WordPress site owner that you need to get your hands dirty. It is not, it's not something you can just be like one fine day, wake up and discover, hey, now I'll use AI. At least not to the level, not to its potential.
How do you think about rolling out AI to a team of, you say you've got 40 people in the whole company now, say half of those maybe are developers? You could say, just for the sake of this discussion, say you got 20, 25 developers. Do you basically allow them to go and experiment by themselves? One developer might be with Cursor, one might be with Gemini, different tools, or is this a more top-down approach? Hey, here's the company Cursor account. Here's a bunch of tokens for you. With something that's so fresh and new and still bubbling up, how do you think about getting your company to experiment and learn?
Yeah, that's a great question. And again, it has been an evolution. And what you think you are doing, it doesn't work exactly that way. So we built a lot of our own internal tooling first to build the engineering. So we knew that we wanted to engineer using this, but the tooling was not there. So we built a lot of engineering processes and internal tooling just by trying to figure out, hey, this is the potential. This is the way to achieve that potential. This is to ensure that the code you are getting is the code you want. And it's not just some random code or a code that you need to rewrite again and again or review or spend a lot of time working with. And we created a lot of those tools and we used a lot of those tools. So that part is top down. But at the same time, engineers will also use bottom up, Cursor, Cloud Code, etc., to fill in the gaps because what you see from top down doesn't cover every case. And if an engineer has to uh, rely on your understanding and your fixing of every process, then they were getting stuck because of it. So we had to give them that flexibility, or they almost went ahead and found that flexibility for themselves. It's been a very, very interesting learning experience of just how organizations also behave, how you will see AI adoption change. So what how when we saw ChatGPT for the first time, a lot of us had that, hey, world has changed today kind of feeling. But when you go through this process, you realize that the way world will change is not a linear path. It's going to be, and it's going to take a long time. It's not going to be like the way we anticipate, or it's not way we anticipated. It's just we are in our own. We get super optimistic. We don't have an understanding of how humans behave almost, and then you get a reality check. And this was reality check of another example of that reality check.
So it sounds as if your answer as to how AI gets into companies like ours is through both directions. You need to push it from the top, providing some of the structure and some of the tools, and also provide room for your individual engineers to solve specific problems and experiment.
Absolutely, but you cannot skip the top-down approach simply because the bottom-up approach believe in mostly, and you can obviously actually from what I have seen, and I've spoken to a lot and lot of different teams, the bottom-up approach almost always effectively leads to vibe coding, which is not, which is good, but it's not great use of AI in my opinion, and it does not really give you the value that you can create. I believe that one of the things that we are working towards is we believe the cost of software is going to tend to zero. Okay. And prior to this, every decision, like, so was cost of software, we used to be like, is the single biggest cost we have. And because software, when you create software, you have to write the line of code, which always takes like 10 times more time, effort than you anticipate. But then it's not an asset, it's a liability because you have to go in and maintain that code forever. So cost of software used to be infinite, and which is why we used to charge such high. We charge such high prices for software, right? Because it's so difficult to actually maintain. It's super expensive to maintain. I think that thing has turned on its head, and cost of software is going down to zero.
Akshat, I logged into our Blog Vault account last week and I saw that you have a new product, and you say you're shy. I'll help you with a promotion on this one, although you guys are doing great. I'm not sure you need it. But you have a product that is coming out called visual regression testing, basically taking snapshots of people's websites and looking for changes. Can you talk me through your process in building that? How much of it was AI driven for your newest product launches coming up?
All right, so no, that's a great question, and again tells you some things about us. First of all, thank you for being a customer. So I'm glad to see that you're, and it's always good to hear someone say that logging into my blog will, that feeling never goes away. That feeling just does not
Still
go
feels
away.
good.
Whenever you hear
Yeah.
it, still feels good. Always feels good. I think that's the beauty of being a builder. You just enjoy that. There's no feeling better than that. Now, coming back to visual regression, that's a product, actually, that's a feature that we have had for many years now. And it is, uh, but it was not very good. And, uh,
It's difficult.
but yeah, it's super tough. It's super tough to get it right. But when it is not right, it's actually useless. And, but today, what we have is incredible. And it is 100 times better than the next person. Today, it is a product which completely changes everything. And actually, it has very little to do with AI. Taking a screenshot of a website is really difficult. We didn't realize how difficult it's going to be. But, taking a screenshot of a website is super difficult because there are so many moving elements. There are so many dynamic elements. Websites have become super complex. There are parts. You had this interview with Andrew from WordPress, who's a longtime customer. He's an amazing person, and he speaks about visual regression testing in that interview. And he spoke about the challenges with, for example, there are ads on a on a website. Now, every time you load an ad on a website, that ad, you'll get a different ad. And if you do a visual regression before and after doing an update, now the ad is going to change. Did the website break or did that website not break? How do you tell the difference? So what we did was we said we'll black out the ads. Now that sounds great, right? And that means that now if you black out the ads, now when you do a visual regression, you can easily catch items which are not changing. And when we tell you a pixel has changed, you can be rest assured that that pixel changed and it's a valid pixel change. All right. Similarly, on a website, you can have, you know, uh, a captcha. The nature of captcha is that it's going to be different every time. We automatically detect that it's a captcha. We will ignore the captcha. Or if it's a slider, if the timing is because of timing, you'll get a different slider. So what we do is we freeze the sliders. We have written
So,
special code to freeze the sliders.
so basically, a website is almost a whole series of traps for visual regression testers, and you have to try and overcome those traps one by one. So, capture, carousels, advertisements, any kind of rotation.
And that multiplied by 1,000. And I did not know it is so difficult. And so we spent months and months, actually years, to get it right. And so this is and I'll tell you the funniest part about even after getting it right, why getting it right is not a great thing. But, when people say that, hey, I've got visual regression testing, WP Remote has got visual regression testing, it's the same thing now. Our products are the same. No, we are not the same products. And that's actually true for all products. We often, have broad strokes. We just be like, yeah, feature to feature comparison, but the features are, uh, they're the value of the feature uh, or the quality of feature makes a big difference, and especially for something like visual regression, because when somebody else tells you that, hey, your website is broken, and you go in there and it's not broken because you can see that it's a slider, then you start ignoring that warning. And in when we tell you that something is broken and if even a pixel is broken, then you know that something is wrong. Now, this is great, right? And you think that this is amazing, and people do love that feature. But the downside of this whole thing is oftentimes we find small changes because the nature of plugins, the nature of themes is that always something is breaking. You know, Elementor, Divi, these things have become so complex that they're always breaking something or the other in some website. So what our data shows is a website has at least 4 small changes happening in a year, which you do not know.
Oh, just because the theme or a theme update, a plugin
Something.
update makes a small change.
Exactly. Now, what happens is often, see, some people like, you know, someone like Andrew or someone like Valley, or Kim from Valley, they want to know every change because they are they they want to adhere to the highest quality. I think they speak about it also in their thing. They manually review everything. They are super careful about their processes, right?
Yeah,
And
both
they
of
both,
them
again,
do.
are customer offers.
Both Valet and NerdPress say no automatic updates. Everything is manual. Everything is done by hand.
Yes, exactly. So now these are folks who want to know even the smallest change possible, right? But there are a lot of people who will see a small change and they will not do anything about it. They don't, even if they know it, they're like, hey, that text has moved a few pixels. I cannot, the amount of effort it will take to identify that movement is not worth it for me. So now this is where we had to use AI to determine, is this a change which will actually something which you will care about, or will you just be like, "Hey, it doesn't matter because I don't care. It's a small change, and we'll give you some levers or some. So we'll give you the option to say that, hey, using AI, whether you want to ignore that change or not. But AI cannot broadly, for example, you cannot just give it two images and say, Here is the diff. Tell me, is this diff proper or not?" That does not work. At least I don't see it working based on our analysis of AI. So we have had to build a lot and lot of software to make it work. Yeah, this is something which again, the amount of energy, effort we spent, and we how deeply we think about these problems. I think that has really made our product stand out. Sometimes sometimes it's really difficult to justify it, because people come, the conversations, they're like, "Hey, you've got this feature, they've got this feature. Why do you cost so much more?" Or
It's it feels difficult in the era of AI to take time over a product as well. Um, uh, People seem to be assuming that with the era of AI and vibe coding, that you should be able to take an idea from conception to launch in maybe not an afternoon necessarily, but 2 weeks, a month. I saw OpenA OpenAPI launched a kind of workflow builder, and they were
yeah,
promoting how they had gone from initial idea to launching it to the public in 2 months. So there's a certain
yeah,
you're going against the grain to some extent by taking years to really get every detail of a product right and to take a lot of care over it.
but if you don't do it, and I would be happy if I could solve it in 6 weeks. If I was
Yeah.
as smart as OpenAI engineers and building that stuff, I would be happy to do it. But what's more important is you cannot launch a product which has so much false positives, because your customers just turn a blind eye in their usage. So while they might purchase your product, it does not really deliver the value that it's supposed to. And one of our goals, and I'm not saying that we have achieved it perfectly, is we have to save you time. If we cannot save you time, give you that peace of mind, and if we cannot use technology to do so, then we are not we have not delivered on our promise.
This is a product that should fit right in your kind of your top right high price high value targeting. We use a visual regression tool right now, and I think we pay about $200 a month. And I've I see the invoice every month and immediately have no problem paying it, because I think of the times when it's caught our checkout breaking or maybe our contact form breaking, and absolutely worth the money. If you can nail this product, I think you have a winner on your hands.
Well, thank you again. It's great to hear this. I'm going to share when this recording comes out, that clip of you, because as product builders, when these things take so much effort, you need this encouragement. You need to again just keep getting the validation that there are people who value this so much, because the cost of a checkout breaking, a form breaking is so high, and we need to keep coming at this problem every day, because uh, you need that encouragement is required by the team. You cannot work in isolation. That's not how good products get created over time.
If you choose to build a product that's difficult enough to take 2 or 3 years, it can be a long, difficult process where you need a lot of encouragement, I guess. If you're vibe coding and one of those people that is knocking out, 5 apps a week, maybe you don't need so much encouragement because there's always a new app. But if you're really trying to tackle really difficult problems, it's a longer process, a more difficult process, a more discouraging process at times.
Yes, no, the 5 apps, 5 plugins, there are people who have multitude of plugins. I tend to discourage it. I think the big winners is what you should go after. Obviously, if you do not have that yet, try and find one, but double down on it. It's worth it. Like, persistence pays, and people, people all there's always a market for great product in whichever segment that you are in. Like you mentioned, right, your product, you are going after some of the most discerning customers that there exist with your product, like to selling to universities, to governments. And you cannot sell a crap product to them. You cannot sell a bad product to them. You have to.
Yes, I'd say that our thinking about this is probably similar to yours, that in an era of AI, when AI is eating the bottom end of the market, you said you and your team believe the value of software is not the value, the cost of software is trending towards zero. That something like your positioning in terms of backups and security and visual regression testing are things that are difficult and indispensable. And if they go wrong, it's a real serious problem. And we kind of have similar thinking that our plugins will lock down your website and control what people can and cannot do. If that goes wrong, you're in big trouble. So for companies like ours, there's a kind of defensibility in being in the high quality, high value section of the market, rather than in the mass market, produce multiple features a week in that section of the market.
Absolutely. Obviously, it comes with a challenge because the marketing, the communication required for it is difficult, but there's a joy to it. The joy of craft is a joy. It's a joy in itself. I think that's something which, again, which we as a company, it's one of our values where we want to enjoy the craft, and you cannot enjoy the craft if you are changing, doing not so great work. Craft comes by, that joy comes by doing things again, like, you know, really. And I'm not saying our products are perfect. It's far from product perfect. When I started, but something I'll tell you is when I started backups, I thought it's a 6 weeks project. How difficult can a backup be? It's like just backing up a file and some database. And even until recently, even now, actually, even day before yesterday, I was having another conversation to make some parts of backups even better. You'll be like, because we just find ways I know that I can back up things which no one else in the world can. No one in the world can, even today. And it's astounding that someone can say that about WordPress sites, because in theory it should not be. Backups should be a solved problem, because we are making AI, we are making things which is magic. Like, not we, as in humanity is making things which is magic, and backing up a WordPress site seems so trivial in front of it, but it is not. And that's the strange part.
Between hosting companies, between firewalls, between people having enormous websites with tons and tons of images and files, I'm surprised anyone gets it right still. I'm probably taking the opposite approach. It seems it seems an unsolvable problem to try and reliably back up anyone's website anywhere.
I should have you as my spokesperson.
Well, Akshat, it's great to hear about how you think about this. I guess you started BlogVault as an engineer, and still, nearly 20 years later, you're still coming at it as an engineer with the love of building products.
Yes, that's a joy. That's my first love. I think building is our first love. When we hire anyone, that's the thing that we talk most about. Like, we love building. Whichever team we hire for, we love building. That's the approach. That's what we are about. That's what, as a team, that's the kind of person we want to hire. Person who wants to build this together with us. So yeah, that's the engineer, the builder, the tinkerer.
So I kind of downplayed your presence on social media earlier, but you do post. You are somewhat active. And where can people follow you in terms of finding out updates from you and the WP Remote team?
So I'm there on Twitter or X as my handle is Akshat C. I'm very reachable. I don't post very often. Just recently, Dustin Heil, day before yesterday, he pinged me and he's like, Akshat, you need to post a thread on security. And I promised him, and then I uh, very conveniently ignored him after that. But yeah, but yeah, folks are so good. That's another thing. The community is so encouraging, so great in WordPress. But yes, so I'm there on Twitter. On LinkedIn, you can reach out to me again. I'm happy to connect with everyone. My email ID is akshat@blockball.net. That's the one where you'll know that I'll always reply. So uh, that's another one which you can reach out to me on.
We've done many episodes, and you're the first person to say that email is the preferred method for getting in touch. I appreciate that. Well, Akshat, thank you so much for joining us today.
Again, thank you so much for having me on, Steve. Thank you.